Megan Ward.
Hi everyone, how's everyone doing? It's been such an amazing day. I landed yesterday and Tajikistan is such a beautiful country. So again, my name is Megan Ward. I'm a women's entrepreneurial activist. Long title, right? I'll explain that later. But also, I'm a brand strategist and also appointed speaker for the United States Embassy. Specifically, I cover the topics of entrepreneurship, women's empowerment, and innovation. But I want to tell you the early days about my story. I'm a storyteller. I believe that legacy is our why. Legacy is our life's journey. So next slide, please. So my early days, I grew up in the United States, in Michigan. We are known as the Motor City. We housed GM, which is General Motors. We also house Ford. So as a little girl, I grew up with a single mother. My single mom instilled hard work, excellence, and always see the glass half full. And so growing up with a single mother, I learned independence very early on. I learned how to utilize my skill sets and what was inside of me. And so growing up in Detroit, I would say that I had humble beginnings, right? So in 2008, a recession hit the United States. And that recession affected everyone at every level. It affected communities at the city level. It affected government. And it also happened to affect our nation on a global scale as well. And so around this time, I had just got into college. And I was super excited to be in college, especially just to be free, right? To experience independence for the first time ever in my life. And so I went away to school, and my mother, she was super supportive in me going away to school. My mom was the first person in our family to go away to college. And so me going to college was really a no-brainer. I just knew I was going because that is what my mother wanted me to do. Now, in going to college, my mom wanted me to be an engineer. She said, Megan, you're gonna go to school for engineering. She selected what I wanted to do. And I started to think, well, Mom, if this is my future, why don't I get to decide what I want to do? And so I said, you know what? I'm gonna tell her that I wanna go into business for myself. I don't really want to be an engineer. And I said, Mom, why do you want me to be an engineer? And she said, I want you to be an engineer because an engineer is one of the highest paying positions that you can get. And I said, well, Mom, what if I'm not passionate about it? And she said, well, I don't really care what you're passionate about. I just want you to succeed. Right? And I got to thinking, well, okay, I'll think on it. But I knew in my heart that I really wanted to try entrepreneurship. So again, this is during the recession, right? People at every level, we couldn't find jobs. We, were living check to check, and it was a really, really trying time. I get a call from my mother. I'm at college, and I had just got my first apartment. And she said, Megan, you have to come back home. And I said, really? Why must I come home? She said, I lost my job, and I no longer can support you in this journey of college. And I cried. I was doing well in school. I was learning how to be independent. I had my college courses, and I also had part-time jobs. And I said, you know what, Mom? I am going to figure this out on my own, and I'm going to get back with you. I hung up the phone, and I got on Google. And I started to Google different things. I'm thinking, okay, how can we fix this situation? How can I provide a solution to my mother's financial challenges and also the challenges that I'm gonna be experiencing if I have to move back home? I would have to stop college, take a pause, and maybe end up quitting. And so as I was brainstorming, different things started to come up. Branding, technology, marketing, coding, and it was overwhelming, to be quite honest. So with these terms, I started to do more research. And I started to dabble into different programs. Does anyone know Adobe? Raise their hand. Mostly everyone in the room. And so I didn't know what Adobe was. I had no idea. I downloaded the free programs, and I said, okay, I know I like technology. I know I'm creative. So what type of business can I create? So I started to teach myself how to code. Literally off of YouTube.com. How many of you know YouTube.com? Yes, we're on there daily, right? We're watching videos. And so I was watching step by step how to use HTML, how to use CSS to build a website. And I ended up teaching myself how to code. Throughout that journey, I expanded on Adobe programs where I learned Photoshop and Illustrator. I really wanted to build my skills. I really wanted to showcase that I was valuable and that I could build a business. So I got on Craigslist. Craigslist is a posting platform online where you can post anything from services that you offer to jobs to things that you want to sell. I told my mom, I said, you know what, Mom? I'm going to put a post on Craigslist. And I'm going to share with people that I do branding, website, and development. And she said, okay, you be careful. If you meet anyone, make sure you meet them in a public place, because I don't want anything to happen to you. So I said, okay, Mom, I will listen to you. I got a ping on my cell phone, and someone responded to my post. It was a woman who owned a company who was just starting out, and she said, hey, Megan, I seen your post on Craigslist. I'm really interested in meeting with you. And I said, whoa, look at this. I don't know what I'm doing, but let's try it out. Let's explore, right? And so we met at a coffee shop, and she said, yes, I'm looking to get a logo designed and a website. How much do you charge? At that time, I'm a college student. I'm 21 years old. I don't know what I charge. So again, I go back to Google. How much should I charge for a logo? This was the design of my first proposal. Again, I was learning as I went. Next slide, please. As I was learning, I started to figure that, okay, I'm onto something. I completed her project. She was so happy. After I completed the project, she said, you know what? You did such great work that I am going to refer you out to a law firm. And I said, oh my goodness, thank you so much for the referral. She ended up referring me to a law firm that was a chain of law firms near my college. That law firm, I ended up securing a 4-year deal with them that put me through college, that I was able to get my mom's house out of foreclosure, and we were able to live more of a quality life during this recession. Here's what I realized. I realized my power. I realized why it's important for us to explore, but also to lean into your gifts. How many people in the room believe that they have a gift? You all have a gift. But guess what? It's your social responsibility to find that gift. And how we do that is we explore, right? So right now, many of you are youth, you're young. You should be in ideation phase. You should be trying out different things. Remember when I was on Google and I was exploring the different terms and I was trying out different programs and I really wanted to build a business? That's the phase that most of you are in right now. So if we fast forward to today, that journey was tough, that risk of starting a business, but we all must start somewhere. Earlier in this session, I said that, I'm a women's entrepreneurial activist, right? Long title. No one gave me that title. That was a title that I created for myself. Throughout the journey of building my company, and this was around the time that Instagram was just getting popular. Is anyone on Instagram? Do you have an Instagram page? Okay, great, awesome. So I had started posting different projects on Instagram, right? I was putting myself out there. I didn't know what type of opportunities would come back to me. So I was putting those projects out that I had been doing for clients, and I started to create a community. And that community of women is what you see here. a lot of these women became my clients. And I started to help them build their businesses from scratch. Many of these women were taking big risks. They were taking their savings and they were infusing their life savings into a business idea that they had. And they would come to me and they said, Megan, I know you've built your business. Can you help me build mine? What type of business can I create and what type of success can I have if I'm taking this large risk? With these women, as you can see, of all different nationalities, of all different backgrounds. And again, this was during the recession. And so during that recession, people started to help people in our community, specifically women. And what I learned about women is that women want to be valued. Women have true gifts, as we all do. And so we started to build this ecosystem, right? And it wasn't just an ecosystem of just one type of woman. This was an ecosystem of women of all different backgrounds, nationalities, life experiences, career experiences, and business industries. Before we looked up, we had a network of over 15,000 women. And what had happened is that we didn't have to go outside of that network to scrap for resources because we had created those resources on our own. And so what you're seeing is a very powerful community of Detroit's majority millennial entrepreneurs that started their business with minimal resources, right? With just our skill sets and just our gifts. And so I was building my brand agency and merging these women together, and I said, okay, what can I do next? How can I answer to the need of what's happening? So I had to put on my creative thinking cap. And I thought, okay, what if I create a co-working space? This was in year 2017. 2017, something that if you all were listening to the presentation earlier, Go Viral started in 2017. 2017 was a special year. And it was a special year because we started to climb out of the recession. We started to lean more into our communities as you are doing right now. Next slide. In 2017, I created the concept of Detroit's first co-working space for women entrepreneurs. It was risky. It was daring. It was something that had never existed in our city or even in our state before. I remember when the first press release went out. The first press release, I got some feedback that I shouldn't be doing this. One, because no one was doing it. But how do we create global change? Global change starts in our communities. Global change starts with one person. And I want you all to think of where you are now as you're exploring, as you're building on your skill sets. This community was started because I decided to go for it. I didn't have a lot of money. I didn't have a big community, but I had a dream and a vision, and I was willing to commit to that vision. With the money that I had saved through my branding agency, I hired a designer to create these renderings. And these renderings, I wanted to show women, this is what we can create. We can create a space for ourselves. We can mobilize each other. We can start to create opportunities and also answer to the challenges of gender equality, gender equity. So what you're seeing right now on the right is our beta test. A beta test is something that you are initiating for the first time, and you're seeing if it works, right? So we had these women, they were coming to the co-working space, and it was a success. Next slide. So here you are seeing the real prototype of the beta test. The women utilized the co-working space to build their businesses. You had women, again, who were starting at ground zero. They were starting all types of businesses, technology-based businesses, writing companies. Some women wanted to be speakers. Some women were building branding companies. Some women were also building global companies in this space. It served as a platform for us of ideation, as Go Viral is for you all. The opportunity to innovate together, to co-create together, is essential to this world. And that's what global activism is. It starts in our communities with us. I want to ask you all, who is open to taking risk? Raise your hand. Many of you. Now, in that risk, I want you to think about how that risk, you can merge it with the answers to your community and what your community needs, right? Because that's what Femology did. Femology was solving a problem. What problems can you solve with your gifts? Next slide. There's 4 words that I learned in college. I was reading a book that I bought from the dollar store. I was a broke college student. I didn't have a lot of money. I had a part-time job, and I was trying to figure things out. I opened a book, and I seen a quote, and it said the 4 Ds, and it said, daily determination determines destiny. And that is a mantra that I have lived by since I was 21 years old. I'm 33 now. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I have 2 boys. And I'm also a global leader. But in the earlier days, what did that look like? The goal wasn't global leadership. The goal was, how can I help those in my community? And from that, it expanded. Something I think that's important to understand about accelerating global leadership is that let's not look at the end goal. Let's look at the now. What can we do now with our gifts and our skill sets, right? So I want you to write this quote down, and I want you all to live by it. Daily determination determines destiny. Of course, we all have goals, and we see this vision for our lives. But sometimes when we see a big vision, it can get us off track. We get overwhelmed. We start thinking about the strategy and the solutions of how we can get there, and it can get overwhelming. I want you to think about now. You're here at Go Viral. I want you to think about who you can meet here. I want you to introduce yourselves. I want you to be vocal and be confident about your gifts and your abilities, because that is how we build global and powerful communities. Next slide. So today, I have 3 companies, and those companies have really come from a need of my communities. The first, Creatively Flawless, which is my branding agency. We focus on women-owned businesses and accelerating their companies to go IPO, to scale into venture capital, to be industry leaders. A lot of my clients are based in major retailers such as Target, Walmart, Sephora, really companies that I had never dreamed of working alongside. My next company, Femology, which is the co-working space, which has transitioned virtually into a global platform for women. I started to understand in the pandemic, okay, you answered to the need of your community here in Detroit, here in Michigan, here in the United States, but women around the world need you too. So during 2020, I made a transition and I made a pivot. Pivots are scary for entrepreneurs because we don't know what's on the other side. But without any risk, there is no reward. So making that transition and making that leap, we went global. And I started a mentorship program where I started to accept mentees all around the world, women who were in need of advisory. They wanted to know, how do I start a business with minimal resources? How do I start a business with just my skill set? Is it possible? Can you show me a blueprint? And so I built a formula where I showcased this blueprint to women, and then I started to see women immobilize. Last, the influencership, where I started to teach women how to work with corporate brands, right? A lot of times we call ourselves a small business, but a lot of times we have the capability of doing big business, right? And I wanted to show women what that looked like. What does it look like to work with a Fortune 100 company? How do you show up to a meeting? What does your proposal look like? And these are the small details that make a big difference in the trajectory of your company. Next slide. In 2017, I received a call, also a message on Facebook. It was from the United States Embassy, and I thought I was in trouble. I was like, what did I do? They said, we are looking for Megan Ward. We would like to speak with her. I'm like, okay, did I do something wrong? And they said, we would like her to go to Georgia. And I thought about it. There's a state in the United States called Georgia, big city called Atlanta. I said, yes, I would love to go to Atlanta. And they said, no, actually, we would like for you to speak to women at all different levels in a country called Georgia, Tbilisi, Georgia. I had been out the country once. I had been to Paris. And I was like, okay, here is my next move. Here is my pivot. So in building this infrastructure of women entrepreneurs in Detroit, the US government said, Megan, we want you to build that infrastructure in different countries. Are you willing to do that? And I thought, this is my life's work. This is my purpose. This started because I was willing to teach myself how to code. This started because I was willing to take a risk. This started because I was willing to go first. So I gave them the yes. They said, okay, you're gonna be traveling thousands of miles. And not just that, you're gonna be speaking to women at every single level. They said, the first place that you will go speak to women in prisons, because we are interested in once they leave prison, we want them to be successful citizens of our country. And they said, after you leave the prison, we want you to go speak to women in government. We want you to speak to lawyers and decision makers of our nation. And we want you to share your story of how you built this network of women. And I said, whoa, this is scary. This is big work, but I'm committed to it. Next slide. Throughout my journey, I've been to different countries such as Russia, such as Trinidad and Tobago. Moscow was an amazing experience. Trinidad was absolutely amazing. And quite recently, as of last year, I had the opportunity to go to Japan. As you can see, there are only about 2-3 women in this photo. Japan is going through major gender equality and equity issues. They're also interested in innovation. When you think of innovation, innovation involves inclusivity. When we talk about inclusivity, that means involving everyone. I'm actually standing with a male-dominated organization called the Junior Chambers Council in Japan. And they said, Megan, we're dealing with some tough issues as it relates to gender equality. How can you help? And I gave them strategies. It was very interesting because these men are young CEOs, they're young leaders. They're leading Japan in terms of venture capital, and they hold a lot of opportunities, but they want to make sure that women are ready. Next slide. Now, we talked about global activism and accelerating it. How can we do that? Because it seems like such a long stretch, such a far journey. I want you to think about your passion. What are you passionate about? No, I don't mean hobbies. I love to sing, but I am the worst singer that you will ever hear. I want you to think about what you're great at. When people meet you and they learn about you, what are you going to tell them? What illuminates, what puts that fire inside of you? For me, design, innovation, creating community infrastructure. Now, I want you all to elaborate on what your true passion is. What's in alignment with your essence? And when I say essence, I mean the true nature of who you are at your core. I don't mean what your friends said you were good at. I don't mean what your parents said you were good at. I mean, if you think of yourself and you peel up all the layers of your experiences, life background, what are you meant here to do? I also want you to think about what the world needs. What does your community need right now, today? And I want you to answer that. I want you to answer to what your community needs in this moment. And what you'll realize is that you'll figure out your life's purpose. My life's purpose didn't come in a day. It didn't come in a night, in a dream. It came over an evolution of taking risks It came over an evolution of falling flat on my face and failing and getting back up. It came from leading, willing to be one of the youngest entrepreneurs in my city to go first. I didn't have a blueprint. I couldn't see the journey ahead of me, but I committed to it, and I was willing to fall and fail, but also I was willing to win. Next slide. Now, I want you to think about your gifts, and I want you to elaborate on those gifts. Gifts, I say, are your life's purpose. You were instilled with your gifts at birth. A lot of times we think that, oh, I'm a great speaker or I'm a great connector of people, but society doesn't value that, so I'm gonna stick it in my back pocket. I remember when I figured out, okay, I'm really great at connecting with people and talking to people, but how can I monetize off of that? Because the world doesn't value that. The world does. You just need to showcase to the world on a silver and gold platter. Next slide. Now, I want you to strategize on what the world needs. And when I say strategy, I want you to think of the challenges that your community is experiencing, right? It was 2008, and women were losing their jobs left and right. Women's homes, like my mom's, was going into foreclosure. We were on the brink of homelessness, right? Okay, women need to build businesses. If they aren't getting jobs, what is the solution? The solution is entrepreneurship. That was what I figured my community needed. So think about Dushanbe, Tajikistan. What do you all need? You are the key in immobilizing the future. You are the key in immobilizing the now. Next slide. Branding and visual identity, I think, has been a core in sharing my mission because, one, it has showcased how I value myself, my work, how passionate I am. It showcased that she's serious about what she does. We're in a time of a digital revolution right now. We have Instagram, TikTok. We have Facebook, LinkedIn. How are you showing up on these mediums? Are you not there at all? Are you not visible? Or are you visible? Are you being consistent? How many of you have at least one social media platform? Raise your hand. Mostly everyone in the room. I want you to start embodying your future. I want you to start embodying the leader that you are on your social media presence. Once I started to realize the value of social media and that social media was not just for my community, but social media was also for the world, and I started to treat it as such. I started to infuse my story in my feed. I started to share the challenges and the realness of what I was going through in my daily life. And what it did, everyone, it started to humanize me, right? We can get online and we can show up in any capacity. But what happens when we show up online as real human beings who are committed and devoted to changing this world? In 2020, when the pandemic hit, I launched my first website, and this was a personal website. It was not a company website. It was for myself. It was to showcase my work, not for ego or to be self-absorbed, but to really show the impact that I can make as an individual, how I could help and serve this world. I launched my website, then I started to get eyes looking at me. Next thing I know, I became the face of Nike. Nike reached out and they said, you know, we really need a face for our brand to help empower women. Would you be willing to do that? I said, yes, absolutely. Next slide. Number 4, your online presence to attract a global audience. So immersing myself and sharing my story, I started to get women from Africa, Japan, Europe, and that started to increase my impact. And it also allowed me to move faster. Today's session is about accelerating global impact. How can we accelerate it? Through social media mediums. There is a healthy way to create and design a life around social media where you can impact the world. And you start with your personal brand. What we will see in the next 10 years, we will start to see CEOs, startups, corporations dive into personal branding. We're actually starting to see it right now. If you all look at Apple and the late Steve Jobs, even though he has passed on to another realm, his story is still infused in the brand. If we look at Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, anytime you see Facebook or Meta, you see Mark. And so the power that we have as entrepreneurs, as philanthropists, innovators, is the power to share our stories, the power to share our impact. And that is what my call to action for you is. Next. Last but not least, networking and relationships. You are all here at the Go Viral Summit. You have a beautiful community, which is absolutely amazing. Again, I want you to exchange your impact, exchange your mission. What are you doing, or what do you want to do? Start vocalizing that. Sometimes if you need to bring out your notes in your phone and you need to reference back to it, go ahead and do it. I remember in my earlier days, I wasn't as secure in my global activism because I was becoming. And that's okay. You're in an exploratory experience right now. Deep dive in it. Start to feel the different aspects of networking and mentorship and advisory, because something that you all need to know is that you need others to push and propel your mission forward. Next slide. In that networking, once you start to fuse those relationships, think of ways that you can create strategic collaborations. Prime example, I do collaborations with the United States government. I'm pitching, okay, how can we advance societies in Central Asia? How can we advance societies in Japan, in Nigeria? I'm serving my impact on a gold platter. Next slide. In my story, I have a story of resiliency. I have a story of the things that I decided to go for it, what I was willing and what I was unwilling to do. So tonight, when you go back home, when you're done with the Go Viral Festival, I want you to act on what is inside of you. I want you to act on the gifts, because the gifts are the starting point of creating and cultivating global change. Today was so amazing. I am so honored to be here in Tajikistan. You all need to know that you have all the puzzle pieces to create the society that you see for yourselves. Thank you so much. My name is Megan Ward. I'm a women's entrepreneurial activist.
Dear Megan, thank you so much for your beautiful presentation. Unfortunately, we don't have time, but we do have time for just one question. So please, if you do have a question, I will immediately come to you, and let's try to be as quick as possible. Please.
Thank you. I'm very passionate about economic empowerment of women, and lack of women, as you mentioned, at the management level is a global issue. And there are some claiming that we want women to have it here, but there are not enough qualified women for managing positions. So my question, what is your message for those who are claiming this, and how to work on preparing qualified women for these management positions and any other high-level positions? Thank you very much.
Excellent question. Thank you so much. I would say that cultivating a group is very helpful, right? Women who are in your same field, who are having those same challenges, who are on that track of women's economic empowerment. If you are wanting to be at the managerial level, C-suite level, that involves advisory and mentorship, right? So I want you to seek out women who have gone along that trail and they're at those positions, because what happens is that those women will have to pass the torch to a new generation. But it's really important in the capacity that we show up, right? A lot of women say, oh, I don't have mentors, or where are the mentors? You must seek out those mentors, right? When we think of mentorship, those women are busy, right? Anyone at that level, they're not thinking of, who do I need to find to help, right? You have to make it be known, you have to be present, and not just that, you have to be operating in excellence. Getting mentorship requires work, right? So I want you to think about, okay, am I doing my due diligence of cultivating mentorship and advisory to get to where I need to go? I didn't get here just by myself. I got here because people were pushing me forward. People were rooting for me. But not just that, I was doing the work and I was excelling in the work.
Dear all, thank you so much. Megan, thank you so much for the answer, for the presentation.